It's the Billy Graham Boxing Podcast, the Preacher's Sermons.
Billy Graham doing a podcast. Who'd have thought it?
Yeah, well, you know, the Boxing Monthly's I used to enjoy doing the column in the Boxing Monthly, and that's stopped now. I think Boxing News has bought it, have they? Something?
Yeah, I think they're all owned by the same people these days.
Yeah. So I thought maybe about time to do a podcast because
Yeah.
I like talking about boxing.
I suppose we should have start by officially welcoming people to the first ever Billy Graham Boxing Podcast. I'm John Evans, and the unmistakable dulcet Salford tones you just heard of the one and only Billy Graham. I'm not sure what we're going to expect. Dr. Doolittle telling Burt Sugar stories with Gordon Ramsay's language. I think that's pretty much going to be what it's going to turn out like, Billy. But for one thing fans can be assured of is you're going to tell the truth.
Yeah, they definitely can be assured of that. You know what I mean? You know, it's for the fans. You know what I mean? And for boxing fans, and they can ask me any question that they want, and I will answer them absolutely truthfully.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I welcome that. Anybody who wants to ask any questions to me, they can do.
Yeah, that's what we want it to become. Lots of people do boxing podcasts these days. We want it to be a bit different. We want the fans to guide us, don't we? Sending your questions. There'll be a Twitter page up. There'll be an email address where you can send in anything. And that's what we're going to talk about. We're going to let the fans guide us.
Yeah, that's exactly right. I want to talk about what they want to talk about, or anything they ask me, because it's the fans who make us. Do you know what I mean? Without the fans, they're the most important people. So without the fans, we're nothing. No sportsman's anything without the fans. So that's what I'm the most interested in. So I welcome any questions, whatever they want to ask me, and I'll tell them.
There's nothing off limits, Billy.
Nothing's off limits at all.
You want to be careful. You don't really know the internet very well, do you?
No, I don't go on social media at all, and I never will, to be honest with you. So if anybody insults me, I won't even hear it.
Now, ordinarily, there's fights happening this side of the Atlantic, that side of the Atlantic, all over the world. There's plenty to talk about, but the weird situation we're in at the minute is pretty scarce news. But the one thing that has got the fans talking about is little promising signs that Anthony Joshua and Tyson Fury have had. You know how long the negotiations take for a big fight, Billy, for years, but there's positive signs. Yeah,
there's positive signs, but I mean, it comes to a point, look, the fact of the matter is, fighters, they've got the hardest job in the world. It's a really hard, it's a brutal life. It's a really hard life. So, you know, you've got to get as much money as possible in the bank, because it's a short life as well. But the thing about the Anthony Joshua and Tyson Fury fight is they've both got more money they can spend. The people who promote them guys have got more money than they can spend. So I think it's about time to don't give a shit about the governing bodies and all that. I'm not interested in the governing bodies whatsoever. It's about time that they two just got together. I know that they're supposed to have. They've got Fury's got Wilder waiting in the wings, and Joshua's got Pulev and all that. But it's just time to get it on. People want to know who the best heavyweight in the world is. People really want to know who the best heavyweight in the world is. For me, Tyson Fury, I'm a fan of both guys. I'm a big fan of Tyson's. I know the family. I've known the family for years. Obviously, he's from Manchester anyway. You know what I mean? Tyson Fury never lost his title in the ring, so Tyson Fury is still, and he is the lineal champion of the world. Do you know what I mean? I'm a big fan of Anthony Joshua's as well. He's got a huge following. He's a great fighter as well. They're rich enough. Everybody involved in that fight is rich enough to fuck the governing bodies off and just get together and fight.
Well, it's certainly once in my lifetime. I think it's once ever. Britain's got the top two heavyweights in the world.
That's never happened in my lifetime, and I'm ancient.
And the wind, you know what boxing's like. God, the best laid plans can go to shit like that, can't they? So I'm with you. I think it's got to happen now. And I personally think, I know there's lots of rumours about where the fight's going to happen. It seems like it's probably going to end up in the Middle East somewhere. I think it'd be an absolute travesty for British boxing fans if that fight between the best two big men in the world didn't take place in Britain.
Well, I think I agree with you entirely. I'd be disgusting if it takes place in Saudi Arabia. Now, I know money talks, But everybody involved in this promotion have all got more money than they can spend, right? So there's no excuse for putting in even more money to go and fight in a country where the British fans will be reluctant to go to, and a country where, let's face it, it's a brutal country. It's got ridiculous rules. It's got all I can say is it's a brutal country. Yeah. You know what I mean?
But my way of thinking, new people are coming to the sport. If, say, the Sultan of Brunei suddenly started saying he was interested in cricket, it's like us giving him the Ashes. We're giving these people who are new to the sport the crown jewels. This is the biggest fight in British boxing history.
Absolutely.
Joshua, Tyson Fury, Wembley Stadium, 80,000 people. As you say, imagine the pay-per-view figures, imagine the receipts. There's enough money there for that fight to happen in Britain.
Everybody involved in this promotion is going to make fortunes. They're the two best heavyweights in the world, and I like both guys. Yeah. Trust me, I love both guys. I love Joshua, I love Tyson Fury. But look, the fans have made them. The fans have made them people wealthy people. I mean, more than wealthy people. Do you know what I mean?
You think it's time to give a bit back?
Yeah, it is time to give it back. It is time to give a bit back to the fans. The fans deserve it. I mean, we have got the best. Well, me and Ricky Hatton, we had the best fans in the world. Everybody says that, but we did have the best fans in the world. Now, British boxing fans are the best in the world. Forget about the Mexicans. Sorry about the Mexicans, because they're great fight fans. Do you know what I mean? But other than the Mexicans, we are the best fight fans in the world. That's why all the top names, all the top fighters now want to fight in England. So it would be a travesty, more than a travesty. It'd be disgusting if them two don't fight in Britain.
There's something else I want to ask you. Two things. Put your trainer's head on for a minute, because I know it never leaves you. Both fighters had Tyson had big changes to his training camp before the last fight, and we saw a totally different fighter. Absolutely. Something actually you alluded to in Boxing Monthly, didn't you? You said if Tyson sits down on his punches, is aggressive, I'm sure you said he would stop Wilder.
Yeah, I did say stop Wilder.
And Joshua had more subtle. He introduced new people into his training camps. Who were you most impressed with, and who do you think benefited from the changes most?
I actually, look, Anthony Joshua did what he thought he had to do. And he actually proved me wrong, because I thought if he boxed and moved, I thought that he would get beat. I didn't want Joshua to take that approach. I wanted Joshua to do a demolition job.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? The same as George Foreman did to Joe Frazier. So I hope.
How much did Andy Ruiz contribute to Joshua being able to do what he did that night?
That's what I'm saying. Anthony Joshua, I don't think they was the right tactics. I know he won the title back and he beat Andy Ruiz. But Andy Ruiz let everybody down. He let himself down, he let his trainers down, he let his father down, he let the fans down. Andy Ruiz is coming even fatter than he usually does. And I think one of the reasons why Joshua won was because Andy Ruiz was so bad. Yeah. I wouldn't have fought Andy Ruiz that way if I had Anthony Joshua.
Do you think Joshua?
I wanted Joshua to take it to him and to do a George Foreman, Joe Frazier job.
And that's what he's. You'll know way
like.
better than me, but surely going at I can't see for the life of me Anthony Joshua outboxing Tyson Fury. He's going to have to be more aggressive. Do you think the Joshua tactics and performance against Ruiz was a temporary thing to be safe, get the titles back, or do you think that might be the way Joshua fights from now on?
I'm hoping it was a temporary thing. Joshua is a big, powerful man, and I think his boxing skills are underrated. He's got great leverages, he's got a good variety of punches, as you've seen against when he fought Klitschko and that. Anthony Joshua is a much better fighter than the way he fought against Andy Ruiz. Yeah. I just hope I hope that isn't how he's going to fight anymore. Yeah. I want him to go back to the old Anthony Joshua, who puts it on people and knocks them out. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? That's what I want to see. So the answer to your question, I was much more impressed by Tyson's Fury tactics. Now, I thought that's what Tyson Fury needed. Yeah. Look, I've watched Tyson all his career. Do you know what I mean? Nobody's had to teach Tyson Fury how to box. Tyson Fury is a natural. Do you know what I mean? He's rhythmic, he's tall, he's smooth, he's got a great jab, he fights fantastic from the distance and that, you know what I mean? Nobody has to teach him to do that.
Yeah.
But he needs to sit down on his shots more. Do you know what I mean? Because he's not getting the best out of himself. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
By just boxing that way, you know. And look,
Do you think-
Ben Davison did a good job
Yeah.
about getting Tyson out of a dark place. And that's more important than boxing, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
So hats off to him for that. But I just don't think he was anywhere near experienced enough to work with a fighter like Tyson. He can't teach Tyson anything. Tyson did what he always did when he fought Wilder the first time. And he was robbed, by the way, when he fought Wilder the first time. When I knew he was going to the Kronk, I don't know Sugar Hill. Do you know what I mean? But I know the Kronk.
Yeah.
And I know Manny. You know what I mean? I know Manny's methods. You know what I mean? And I heard Sugar Hill was like the same ilk. Do you know what I mean? But plus
Andy Lee.
Andy Lee was there, and Andy Lee's like a perfect Kronk fighter, tall, massive punching power, but he does it with leverages and timing, not brute strength.
Yeah.
Now, when I knew that Andy Lee was being involved, and he was going to the Kronk, I was over the moon because I knew they was going to teach him to sit down on punches, and plus, let me tell you something as well. They've not scratched the surface yet.
No, well, I was going to say.
If he keeps working on that stuff and getting that right hand better,
Yeah.
and there's room for improvement there. You know what I mean? And you know, put it on people and stuff like that. He'll get better. Tyson will get even better.
I was going to say, if I was asking you whether Joshua, you thought it was a temporary change in tactics to just get through that fight, but Fury going to the Kronk, that seems to me like a more permanent change. You know, that's a style they fight in, and there's not going to be different tailoring styles to suit different fighters as much at the Kronk, is there? That'll be a permanent change to Tyson's style.
I hope it's a permanent change to Tyson's style, because that's all he needs to add to his arsenal.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? He can do all the other stuff. He can do that other stuff in his sleep. Do you know what I mean? He's bound to do that. He just needs to add more to his arsenal, and it's sitting down on shots and getting a bit more power.
Now just keep that trainer's mindset. I'm not going to ask you who's going to win the fight. We've got a year to talk about it. It's going to drag on forever. Given each fighter's skill set and what you've seen, whose camp would you prefer to be in? Who would you prefer to be taken into that fight, Billy? Which raw materials would you like to mould?
They've both got great raw materials.
You've got to pick one. I'm going to put you on the spot.
I'm going to pick one, and it's going to be Tyson Fury. That's not to say anything detrimental about Anthony Joshua. I really like the guy. I think he's great for boxing. I've never met him personally, do you know what I mean? But I really like the guy. And look, he's got the firepower to knock anybody out. And I think his boxing ability is a bit underrated, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
After that mishap with Andy Ruiz, which I know I'm the only one that keeps on saying it, but there was something wrong with him that night. He wasn't right that night. He shouldn't have been in the ring that night. So I'm a big fan of Anthony Joshua's as well. But I'd have to go with Tyson Fury. And if I had to bet, I'd actually bet on Tyson Fury. But Joshua's got the firepower to take him out. But no, and hey, me and Tyson Fury both come from Manchester. So that's a little bit as well.
Right, for those of you who are listening to this, just to let you know, there is a video version of this podcast. It's available on the VIP Promotions YouTube channel. It might just be worth checking it out. We sat in outside Billy's bungalow. We've got a meadow stretching off. Which river's this, Billy? Over to our left.
River Tame.
For River Tame, stretching out to the left. And on the table in front of us, we've got Billy's new pet. Go on, Billy, introduce us.
This is Tiger, the pet kestrel. She's only 7 weeks old. He's an old mate of mine who a lot of you will remember. A fighter called Gary Thornhill, Scouser, little pressure fighter. He was the British champion. He's a falconer. And he's like, Gary's my trainer. He's teaching me how to man the bird, as they say.
Yeah. Right, so it's a beautiful...
He comes down here. He'll be coming down here in the next few days. And he was there last week and that, teaching me how to do it. So.
And tell the people listening where this kestrel's living.
Well, it's basically living in my house. It's what you call an imprint. Apparently, it thinks I'm its mother.
So you're not going to start breastfeeding it, are you?
Which is nice. No, if I could, I would.
But this thing comes everywhere with you, doesn't it? You know, I believe it sits perched on your head when you go for a shit.
I don't take it when I go for a shit, but when I go for a piss, it sits on my shoulder. It sits on my shoulder and that. And she does like jumping on my head sometimes and all that lot. She sits watching the telly with me and that on my shoulder and that. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, it's the first bird of prey you've had, isn't it? But animals, Billy, you're in out. Your tattoos on your hand, on your arms and stuff is snake, reptiles, frogs, and you're renowned for it. And you used to have. What animals did you used to have in the gyms in the past?
Oh, I got them by mistake. I actually went down to. I was going to buy a bird of prey.
Yeah.
And I went down to this guy who had an aviary. He had owls and hawks and that. I know a few people who are falconers. You know what I mean? And I was going to get a bird of prey, and the people, they had a couple of iguanas, and they like adult iguanas or well-grown iguanas. You know what I mean? And the guys were scared of them, so. I took the iguanas and I just had them in a display cabinet in my gym. I ended up giving them to a zoo.
Yeah. But
giving them to a zoo.
But you didn't just go and get an iguana one day. When you were a kid, were you lifting up rocks and picking up the centipedes and were you always rooting around in?
From being a little kid, my hobby was like turning over stones to see what was underneath them and that, you know. And I'd love doing.
How exotic did things get in Salford?
Listen. I was born in the 50s. People, herpetology, you know, people who keep reptiles and amphibians, is quite common now. Well, it's massive now. You know what I mean? Everybody has them. But in them days, nobody had anything like that. But I got my first lizard when I was 7, and I've kept them ever since. Lizards, snakes, frogs, toads. I've had a monkey and a marmoset.
There is going to be a special edition of this podcast where I get Billy to describe the tower block flat in Salford where we had 2 monkeys and what type of lizard was it?
It was a huge iguana. It was a fully grown iguana.
Roaming wild on the top floor flat of a Salford housing estate.
Used to live wild in the house, and then I ended up having this monkey. That's for another tale. You know what I mean? That's another story itself. But I did end up with a monkey as well. I mean, it wasn't my decision about this. I just ended up with this monkey. So I ended up like the 3, and I built a massive cage for it in my bedroom, but I never put it in it. So the monkey and the iguana just used to live in the house with me. But that's an episode on its own. To talk about fucking boxing.
No, people need. It's funny, Billy. Billy's got so many stories, and some of them will have you doubled over laughing. So the idea of this is, we can all talk about boxing. Billy can talk about boxing like nobody else. But there's so many other stories and stuff that I think people have got away. Like when you were.
She'd be flying free in well, I don't know how long really. I have to wait till Gary tells me.
Till Gary tells you. But you know, when you said you went getting these iguanas, tell the listeners about when you were a young 10-year-old and you found your way down to Tib Street and the reptile shop.
Tib Street was the first place where there was any exotic animals, you know what I mean? Like I said, I got my first lizard when I was 7. Them days, kids used to walk around all over, used to walk to town, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You very rarely had the bus fare. But this particular day, you're talking about when I nicked the snake, aren't you?
I hope you're going to talk about nicking the snakes.
Right. So I just cycled up one day to Tib Street, and they just got a batch of grass snakes. They had quite a lot of stuff, you know what I mean? And the place used to be absolutely teeming, really full, you know what I mean? And so these grass snakes was at the bottom, right at the bottom of the shop, the bottom layer of tanks at the shop. So I'm kneeling down looking at these snakes. I'm noticing that all I can see is people's legs right next to me. Do you know what I mean? I've never had a pot to piss in, you know what I mean? Never anymore. And I thought, I could nick one of these now, you know what I mean? So anyway, I went across the street. I went outside and I picked up this little toffee bag, them little triangle-shaped toffee bags, you know what I mean? And I got right near the tank and all these, because it was full of people. So nobody couldn't see me, you know what I mean? So I had to open the tank. I had to put the snake in my mouth and then somehow manoeuvre it into the toffee bag. And they got me back and fucked off.
And that was the start of it. The collection grew from there.
I've had all kinds of collections. There are all kinds of collections. It's like all my life and that. I mean, our kid was in the army. He bought me a boa constrictor when I was about, don't know, about 11. No, I used to walk around with this boa constrictor. Nobody'd seen anything like that in them days. You know what I mean? It wasn't like that in them days. Nobody had them. I had giant toads from South America and all that lot and stuff. You know.
And looking around here now, we've got Tiger the Kestrel, we've got Truffles the Terrier.
Oh, the little glass snake what I got off Josh Warrington's dad.
We've got a grass snake that Josh Warrington's dad gave you.
Yeah, Sean gave me that. Sean and Josh are good mates of mine. Yeah, I'm going to let the grass snake go though.
Yeah.
He knew a guy who bred some grass snakes, and he asked me did I want to have one. I'd not had a grass snake since I was a kid. You know, since about, I don't know, not for years I've not had a grass snake, so I just thought it'd be interesting to rear it. And I'm actually going to let it go where grass snakes live. Do you know what I mean?
And just over our shoulder here, we've got the pond, which last year was full of.
Yeah, I've got
full of toads, and we've got the preacher's polecat, which live in a house that's bigger than yours.
Yeah, and my ferrets and that. Yeah. One's called Young Tom, the other one's called. Fucking hell, I can't remember. What? Oh, I've got a bullfrog.
You've got a bullfrog?
Yeah, I've got a South African bullfrog.
When did you get the South? I've been coming here for 4 or 5 years, and I didn't know you had a bullfrog.
No, I've had that for over 10 years. More.
Where does that live?
He lives in the spare bedroom. Pepsi, Young Tom, and Pepsi. That's my ferret.
Have you got a name? Have you got a name for the snake? Could you give it a boxing? Could you give a snake a boxing themed name, Billy?
I've not actually named the snake. Oh, of course. You know what? I'm forgetting everything. I always forget everything. It's called Handsome Bob. After a guy out of the Rock and Roller. Yeah, Handsome Bob. It's called the snake.
Handsome Bob.
Handsome Bob.
Right, well there we are. Is it feeding time for Tiger?
Well, let's see. Come on, darling.
There you go. It's a good job we got sound effects, Mike. Feeding time for Tiger.
That's a mouse it's eating.
It's eating a mouse. Something you don't get in any other podcast, Billy.
No, you know what? I forget everybody's name. I forget everybody's name all the time.
Now, Billy, normally in this third part we're going to get listeners and viewers' questions in and stuff, but because we've got no questions, we're going to look back at a famous fight from your career. A lot of people will be expecting us to talk about Ricky and Zoo, but I can't be bothered seeing you cry again. you cry I've seen you doing that on TV.
Yeah, it does. I can't help it. Every time it makes me cry.
So we're going to go back 17 years, it is, since Michael Gomez beat Alex Arthur. 17 years.
Ago it was? 17 years ago?
Yeah.
Wow.
It's crazy, isn't it? Now, a lot of people associate you and Mike, you know, because of a couple of famous wins, but he came to you just a couple of fights prior to Arthur, didn't he?
Yeah. Look, there was like this so-called rivalry which didn't exist about me and Brian Hughes, about our gyms. The rivalry didn't exist at all. All the fighters was mates with Brian Hughes' fighters. I've known Brian Hughes since I was 16.
Yeah.
My first time was a fight was against one of Brian's guys. In the NABCs, I fought one of Brian's guys. I used to spar with all his fighters when I was a fighter. All the Colliers, he had a lot of good fighters, you know what I mean? A lot of good. Brian's always had good fighters, you know what I mean? So there really was no rivalry between us in reality, but something was made of that. I don't know how it happened, but you know.
And at the time we had Ricky leading the way, Arnie Farnell, a massive ticket seller.
That's right.
And Mike Gomez, all three came up together, didn't they?
To be honest with you, the three of them are really instrumental. Although we had a lot of good fights in Manchester, I had a great camp with Carl Thompson, Enzi and all that lot, and Steve Foster. I had a great
Never
camp.
grabbed the attention for whatever reason, did they? Never sold tickets. Steve Foster
was a huge ticket seller. But I've got to say, what I think is really instrumental in bringing boxing back to life in Manchester was them three. It was Arnie Farnell, Michael Gomez and Ricky Hatton.
Yeah. And Gomez, I love him. No offence, but I think Mike's probably my favourite Manchester fighter ever. When he wasn't with you and he was knocking around other gyms and doing whatever he did, was he a fight you admired?
Oh, of course, yeah. Mike was made for me.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? I was always a big Mike Gomez fan, right from the first time I seen him. You know what I mean? And yeah, he was great to watch. He's my kind of person, to be honest with you. You know what I mean?
I can understand that.
You know, we used to call ourselves rough as fuck promotions. Do you know what I mean? So Michael Gomez fitted in, like, you know,
Yeah,
he
he's
really fitted in.
unbelievable character, isn't he? But
Yeah.
so Mike had a good career, he'd won a Lonsdale belt, but he was going off, you know, he's living a wild life, shall we say, Mike, wasn't he? And he got beat off Kevin Leary, who was a good fighter, but it looked like the end for Mike, didn't it?
Look, don't forget, we're all close and that. All my guys all knew all them lot and everything, you know what I mean? And we knew that Mike was going off the rails, it's no secret, do you know what I mean? He was going off the rails well before the Kevin Leary fight, do you know what I mean? Kevin Leary was a good fighter,
Yeah.
without a doubt a good fighter, but I don't think he'd have beat the real Mike Gomez. But we could see it coming,
And he was cast adrift, wasn't he?
Well, when Kevin Leary beat him, I think everybody had had enough of him, you know? I think Frank had had enough of him, I think Brian had had enough of him. And I can understand that. I really can understand that, but I didn't like the way that he was like, just threw away, like, you know what I mean? And people give up on him because he'd done so much for British boxing, Manchester boxing. And so when he asked me to train him, everybody advised me against it. I think Frank advised me against it, but hats off to Frank. He got him a few build-up fights.
Yeah, he wasn't just thrown straight into Alex Arthur, was he? I think he had 3 fights.
I wouldn't have allowed that, to be honest with you. But give Frank his due. Do you know what I mean? Because normally, as what happens in boxing, you get served up to the next up-and-coming star.
Yeah.
And that's the way it goes. That's the way boxing works. It's cruel, but that's the way boxing works.
Yeah.
And so when Mike come to me and asked me for the training, I'd said to him, listen, because he mentioned Alex Arthur, you know, and Alex Arthur was looking fantastic. I was a big Alex Arthur fan,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? Because he was a great prospect. And one of the things I said to him was, listen, don't start fucking talking about Alex Arthur, because I'm not putting you in with Alex Arthur unless you show me you've got something.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? I need to know what you've got. And like I say, so I said to Frank, you know what I mean, I want a couple of build-up fights, you know what I mean? And Michael come to my house. I only my missus, she brought him down to my house. We had a good long talk.
Yeah.
I talked to the lads first, because they always, if I'm going to bring another fighter in, because I always had too many fighters. Do you know what I mean? So I asked them all. I'm having a meeting with Michael Gomez today, and if he makes the right noises, he wants to come here. You know what I mean? How do you all feel about it? And they all said, no, it's fine.
Yeah. Something you say to me, it's a quote that sticks in my head, is you say, your fighters have got to be honest with you.
Yeah.
Because you're going to ask them to do you've got to ask them to do some unnatural things.
Absolutely.
Was Mike honest with you in those 3 fights building up to Arthur, and then in the build up to the Arthur fight? Was he aware of he was on his last chance? Was he as good as gold, or?
No, he knew it was his last chance. I told him I'd give him everything, as long as he gives me everything.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? That he had to live the life proper. He had to show me something. You know what I mean? And he did.
He did.
Right from day one. When he walks out of my house, he did everything. I tell him as well, anything I ask you to do, I can explain why I'm asking you to do it.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And he was fantastic to train. He was a great member of the camp. He was loads of fun to be around. Mad as a fucking match.
Yeah, go on. What sort of stuff did Gomez get up to? Tell us about the his moped when he thought the police were tailing him because he had drugs.
I think he got arrested on this moped. I think he'd been banned from driving or something. I don't know. So he started coming on a moped or something. I can't actually remember the details now. But anyway, his wife used to bring him down anyway in the end. Do you know what I mean? And she used to always bring him to the gym. She was a lovely girl. She was great. And no, everything went fantastic. And like I say, Frank did us a favour. He didn't just chuck him to the wolves right away. You know what I mean? And I remember saying to Michael Gomez, "I'll tell you when we're ready for Alex Arthur." Do you know what I mean? So Frank got us a couple of warm-up fights and that, you know what I mean? Mike was behaving himself, and Mike was loving it in the gym, and like I say, he's my kind of fighter. Do you know what I mean?
Well, the first time you took Ricky on the pads and the old body belt, and you said straight away you knew. The first time you took Gomez on with his head movement, coming forward, that left hook, did you realise, you know, Jesus Christ, we can do something together here?
But the thing about Michael Gomez is it's how close it could be. He didn't have as much flair as Ricky, obviously. Ricky's an all-time great. He didn't have as much flair as Ricky. He liked to move around, but he was good at it, you know what I mean? But what he was the master at is how close he could be and get that uppercut inside you.
Yeah.
He'd be right on you. I've seen the fucker hit himself. He's that close. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
He was the master at that. Do you know what I mean? And that's how I knew he'd beat Alex Arthur. It didn't turn out that way actually, but I knew that he had the tools to beat Alex Arthur. You hear me?
Yeah.
But I knew how good Alex Arthur was. Trust
Yeah.
me.
Well, at the time, I won't be an after timer here. It was the right fight for Alex, wasn't it? You know, Gomez was a known name. They were building Alex up. He was going to be aggressive. He would probably go down swinging, as they say, wouldn't he? He'd make Alex look good. It was the right fight for Alex to take.
On paper,
I thought Alex had beat him.
everybody thought Alex would beat him. On paper, it was the right fight for Alex to take. Mike was in the Last Chance Saloon, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it was the perfect fight for Alex Arthur as well. But look, anyway, as we're going through training, and then he's getting better and better and better, and he's really living the life and he's doing great. I went, now we're ready for Alex Arthur.
Yeah.
Now we'll have it. Do you know what I mean? And so obviously I knew he was going to get offered it.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And so anyway, they did. And I remember telling Frank and all his staff and that at the meetings, you know, the press conferences, you know, all the stuff and that. You know, he's going to beat him. You know what I mean? But he's not ready for Michael Gomez, right? He's not ready for Michael Gomez. Because Alex Arthur was very good. Great boxer, great technical boxer. But he had a wicked left hook to the body as well.
Yeah.
Nice left hook to the head. You couldn't fault him, to be honest with you.
And he just licked up with Freddie Roach, hadn't he? Freddie wasn't in the corner that night, but there was lots
I
of
wish
stories.
he would have been. I'd have liked that.
You'd have loved that, wouldn't you?
I'd have absolutely loved that. I like going against famous trainers. It makes him more glory.
Yeah, Billy doesn't just, when he goes against the famous trainer, it's not just fight against fight. You like to pick your wits against another top level trainer, don't you?
Oh God, yeah, that makes it like that. And it's great being the underdog as well. It takes a lot of pressure of being the underdog.
I watched his fight the other day, and your face when you were stood behind Mike, when you had the Mexican hat on, the atmosphere was, they hated you, didn't they? But it looked like you were absolutely loving it, you Mike and the team that night.
We was right up for it, and I had Ricky in the corner as well, because Ricky was the up and coming star, you know what I mean? And I thought that might put a little bit of fear into him, you know what I mean?
Paul Smith and Stevie Bell on the front row.
All the guys was all there, all the camp was all there, everybody used to follow each other. We was a really close-knit team and that, you know. And so we was ready, you know what I mean? I remember talking to Ken Buchanan behind the scenes, Ken Buchanan's one of my idols, do you know what I mean? I love Ken Buchanan, you know what I mean? I remember talking to Ken Buchanan, because I'd met him before, you know what I mean? He'd been to my gym and that, you know, and we did some after dinner stuff, me, Ken, and Mad Frankie Fraser. So I'm talking to Ken, and Ken's an honest guy and really smart boxing guy, you know what I mean? And he says, no, Alex will beat him. He said, I think Michael's a bit too long in the tooth, do you know what I mean? I think he's past it. I said, no, Ken, we're going to win this fight. I'm telling you now, we're going to win this fight. But, well, go on.
Well, go on, I know you said he was getting better and better in training, you put a plan together. It went out the bell, didn't it, within 20 seconds?
Yeah, we had an absolutely fantastic game plan that we're going to give Alex a few rounds. Do you know what I mean? Going to give him a few rounds. We're going to make him work too hard. You know what I mean? Make him box and move, make him jump around and dance around all over the place and that. You know what I mean? As Mike was conserving energy, and then we was going to engage, like in about the mid rounds.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? When I seen him having to sit down.
Yeah. Didn't
Didn't want to take him on when he was on fire. Do you know what I mean? Because because Alex Arthur was at least as dangerous as Mike. Do you know what I mean? So we didn't want to take him on right away. I wanted to drag out. I want to take a little bit out of his legs in that first.
Had you got down the ring steps before all hell let loose?
Oh, Gomez caught him early with a left hook. Probably about, I don't know, about maybe 30 seconds into the fight or a little bit more, I don't know. And he hurt him. And then I just knew the fight was going to ignite. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's what I didn't want. But there's certain fights when you can't reel them in. You can't slow it down. Mostly you can. But when it kicks off like that, it's like the same thing with Jamie Moore fought Matthew Macklin.
Yeah.
There was no control. Once it ignites, you know what I mean? So he got him with that left hook, and that was it. Then they was off, and I thought, fuck me, it's going to be a war now.
How does your role change? And you've spent 6 to 8 weeks, I guess, preparing Mike with this plan. You've drilled it into him, he knows what he's got to do, and then all of a sudden, shit's hit the fan, and everything's kicked off. How does your role change as a trainer then? Do you try and drag him back? Do you just try and calm him down, or do you adapt to the fight and see what's happening in the fight and just go on the fly?
That's a good point. You've really got to stay in control, but sometimes you just lose control.
Yourself.
Well, not myself. The fight is just ignited. You know what I mean? So there's sometimes in fights like that when you've got to adapt yourself. Do you know what I mean? And you've got to go with it. The war has started now. Do you know what I mean? When I wanted the war to start at about 8 rounds, do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I want to take away from Alex. Do you know what I mean? So when they finally engaged, I want him to be slightly weakened. But sometimes, and when they're both on fire, and it ignites, you can't stop it. So you've just got to go with it.
Yeah.
And that's what it was, and that's what I feared. So I'm not taking credit for the win. Do you know what I mean? I'm not taking credit for the win. I got him in shape and I got him through the fight, but it ignited, and wow.
You like your fighters in the corner to speak to you, didn't you? You like to ask them how the other guy. You like them to give you nice, clear answers so that you knew what was up. How was Mike in that fight?
I always tell my fighters to tell me the God's honest truth, the absolute truth in the corner, and I always tell them the truth in the corner. And I say, like I'm generally calm, and I say, if you feel any urgency in my voice, you hear any urgency in my voice, you know it's an urgency situation.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So I basically try to keep calm, but when a fight's fighting at a hot pace, you're in that hot pace yourself, you know what I mean? And the war had started. And Alex, I've got to say, Alex was great that night.
He was.
Do you know what I mean? He fought really courageously, he fought skillfully and that. But Mike, it was the will. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
He was unstoppable, the will.
It was a fantastic fight. Was there... It's one of those fights where Mike catches him early, Alex has a couple of rallies, but Mike always seems a couple of punches away from winning, whereas Alex looks like he needs a big turnaround in a couple of points. Were you, although there was madness happening all around you and it was a vicious fight, were you confident in what was happening and that Mike could be able to come out of a war like that? Or was it just a toss of a coin on which side comes down? How did you feel? Did you have a bit of comfort and confidence?
No, I was still confident.
Yeah.
I was still confident. In fact, I can't believe, like I've seen it on the TV, and I can't believe how I kept it together, to be honest with you, because it was chaos. But no, I was still confident. I was always confident, Mike. Mike wanted that fight. Mike wanted that win. Oh, more than anything. Yeah. I knew he had to kill Mike to beat him.
Yeah.
But like I say, Alex was showing loads of courage. And I'll tell you something. He almost turned it around. He almost turned it around just before the finish. He'd hurt Mike to the body a few times, but in the last round, just before the end of the fight, he'd caught him with a wicked body shot, and Mike was already winded. And if you watch the fight, you'll see him go back to the corner. He'd already been hurt. So he went back to the corner, and I know what it's like to get hurt to the body. You know what I mean? And then when he's on the ropes, he got him he got in with a fucking huge left hook to the body again, and Mike sagged. Do you know what I mean? And you could hear him go, you know, he groaned like, you know what I mean? And he almost sat on the ropes. And Ricky, who's a boxing expert, do you know what I mean? He really is. And Ricky just went, he's not going to get over that, Bill. And I don't know if it was just wishful thinking on my part, and I just went, he will. And then he done him.
He done him, yeah. Gomez, 3 big knockdowns, weren't there?
Yeah.
A bit of a sickening finish. Probably shouldn't have taken the final shot, Alex. Mid-rounds.
No, he shouldn't have actually taken the final shot. But look, it was his hometown, and you know, when people don't understand, when you really want to win the fight, when you really everything's on the line and all that lot, when you get hurt in a fight, what you worry that if the ref's going to stop it.
Yeah.
Is the ref going to stop it? Do you know what I mean? When you're hurt, and that's how it was. That's how it was on there. So I don't blame the referee or anything like that. It was one of them kind of fights, and it was in Alex's. It was in Edinburgh, Alex's hometown, and that. Yeah. You know what I mean? I'll tell you something about that. I don't bet on my fighters. I don't. But I remember being in my hotel the night in Edinburgh, and there's plenty of guys who I know who used to bet on the fights and that, and they'd always phone me up and that. I get mad to death about that fights. People mad me up about betting and all that. Yeah. You know what I mean? And I told them all, we're going to win. We're going to win. And there's a lot of money. A lot of our mates won a lot of money on the fights. I'm sorry I didn't bet on it.
Yeah, I can't
think what the odds was, but they was sort of massive, weren't they?
I can picture the pubs in Moston now that all that money went across the bars in. Mike probably disappeared, did he, for about 3 weeks?
I don't know. I can't remember, to be honest with you.
But, you know, so you got the dust settling there. Alex is on his stool. Take us inside the ring. A lot of people listening, we never get the opportunity to be that close to a fight like that. You know, Gomez has just turned his career around, saved his career, kept his life going because Mike could have spiralled. What was it like being in the ring there? What were people saying? What were the conversations people were having in the ring that night?
I don't think there was many conversations. Everybody was loving each other. Everybody, look, you've done it. You're at war with these people, but when it's over, and that event, so being in an event like that, then everybody loves each other. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? And everybody was exhausted. It's one of them fights, you know what I mean? I've been involved in a lot of fights, a hell of a lot of fights, and I've had loads of great nights, but that's one of the best nights of my career. Did
the fans give you a nice reception afterwards, Billy?
Oh, that was ridiculous. I'm deaf in one ear, totally deaf in one ear, and it only just happened, to be honest with you. So I wasn't actually used to being deaf. I'd still a bit unbalanced and all that lot. And I think I was talking to Jim Watt. I don't know. And I could see loads of crowds still there. I was about to go home. I could see all these crowds, all these crowds. I could see them all shouting things at me and all that lot. And so I was waving to them thinking, wow, you know, this is great. You know, there's all booing us before, you know what I mean? So I thought they'd like warm to us, you know what I mean? So I'm waving to them and everything. And somebody just nudged me and says, Billy, do you know what they're saying? What are they saying? They're saying, fuck off back to Manchester, you horrible cunt, Billy Graham and all that, you know what I mean? So, but it was funny.
Can you was the celebration, I know Mike's celebrations were wild, weren't they? He used to disappear off into the pubs afterwards and emerge a couple of days later. Were you at the point where you were knocking around with the fighters after fights?
We used to always have after fight parties, especially after Ricky Hatton's fight. So I imagine we had one after the Gomez
fight.
I can't remember. But we used to always have big after fight parties after Ricky Hatton, and a gang of us used to all go out, and then we'd start off drinking in Hattersley, where Ricky comes from, and that, you know what I mean. And we all live in Tameside. I've lived in Tameside now for quite 20 odd years, you know what I mean. And then we'd all go to Ashton. Everybody knew he was coming. Everybody expected us coming, and it was fantastic.
Great days.
Yeah. So I imagine we definitely would have happened after the Gomez fight, but I can't remember it.
Can't remember.
If I got that drunk, I can't remember it.
Well, I think that's it, Billy. Have you enjoyed your first podcast experience?
Yeah, it's been okay. I don't know. I'll
We'll
tell
find
you that.
out, won't we?
I'll tell you that when I've heard it.
We'll find out.
So,
We've got there's an email address for preacherspodcast@gmail.com. Send any questions, any thoughts, any stories you might have met Billy out and about. I'm sure he'd love to hear it. And there's going to be a Twitter page set up, so it's going to be at the Preachers Pod. We'll put links to everything there. Maybe even the odd little cameo from Billy might turn up on there at some point. But let us know what you want. We want this to be about the fans, just to say what we said at the start, don't we, Bill?
yeah, of course, because the fans are the most important people in the world. So, you know, that's the only way that sport exists. Do you know what I mean? And like I say, me personally, I've been treated fantastic off the fans. You know, so yeah, I'll answer any questions they want.
Yeah, brilliant. Well, I hope you enjoyed it, and see you on the next episode.
For all boxing info, news and latest interviews, amateur and pro, across the north, click and subscribe. VIP Boxing Promotions. Also, Twitter, Instagram and Facebook.